in this, and she even brought up the fact that her dress line business was profitable. So she's like, in 3 years, you didn't really do nothing. You did do stuff. And Jane kind of said, well, it's here nor there, but I feel like I could have done a lot more, etc. Let me see what else. There was also just text messages between Jane and Diddy where she says, I wish you were here so we could play our videos, meaning the videos they recorded in the different hotel rooms. And then she showed us 2 instances of text messages where Diddy essentially says to Jane, and we saw kind of the same thing with Cassie, we don't have to do any more of these hotel nights, or debauchery they called it. It can be just us. And okay, so then we saw this one text thread, again, more dirty text, but Jane tells Diddy that she feels sexiest when she's intoxicated off of wine. And Diddy responds, oh, I didn't know that. And they're kind of talking about hotel nights and what makes her feel the same. She feels sexiest when she's intoxicated off of wine. And
okay, so it looked like she was trying to tell Diddy, like, let's slow down with this drug shit, man. Like, let's slow down with all the consumption of this other stuff.
Diddy responds, oh, I didn't know that. And they're kind of talking about hotel nights and what makes her feel the sexiest. And he says, I didn't know that. You don't have to do Molly. And he also says something like, we don't have to get crazy for the rest of the year. And Jane says something like, it's okay with me, meaning like, I don't mind necessarily getting crazy. That's fine. And Diddy says, what do you mean? And Jane testified that she took that whole thing as like an angry undertone when he said, we don't have to go crazy for a year, almost kind of like a test. And that's my words, not hers, but that's how I kind of translated this. And Jane says, after he says, what do you mean? She said, I love that we have this freedom with one another. And Diddy says, you don't think I can do it, meaning not have a hotel night. And she says, I just know that there will be debauchery before the end of the year. I don't mind it. I just want some romance time. And Diddy says, I'm going to make you beg for debauchery. And then she gives like a laughing face and says, okay, let's try it, but I love it all with you. And then Diddy texts back.
This is kind of confusing because, at times, she seemingly more vehemently told Diddy, I don't want to do this shit no more. But then Diddy would butter her up and she'd be like, oh, I'll do it. Now, we keep bringing up this damn question. What is like manipulation versus what is you're doing this shit because you feel it's a way to keep a man? Like, are you being manipulated or are you making a choice?
I love the times that it's just me and you. And then again, we ended with just more text messages about hotel nights. And that was when she kind of said, I want him to play this video. And yeah, overall, it was just a day. It was an afternoon as well. So tomorrow, again, I mentioned there will be a short day. So I'll probably just do one update in the afternoon. But yeah, I think, that was pretty much it for the afternoon. All right, guys.
Okay, let me just play logic that we get a little different perspective here. And we're going to hop into what happened.
We just wrapped up day 20 of the Diddy trial, and if the actual jury is anything like the unofficial jurors, those who are watching the trial with me in the viewing room, they are deeply conflicted as to what to take away from Jane as to whether or not she's a victim of being trafficked. I am Joe Neerman.
Oh, wow. Remember, I said she was stronger than Cassie. Now, again, everything changes day by day, Chad, and that's why when you guys ask me questions and donations, I got to be honest with you, it's kind of like it's teetering back and forth.
AKA good logic. I'm a New York litigator who's practiced in this very courthouse in the Southern District of New York, and I come down to the trial for the purposes of breaking down for my audience right now. The opinions that I've heard about Jane are very divergent and very deeply felt, where it seems as if Jane, that many feel very definitively that she's a victim of being trafficked, and others say straight out that woman was not at all trafficked. Let me break down for you perhaps why that is, and it should lead us to conclude that the actual jury is likely to spend a great deal of time debating over this third charge of the 5 charges brought against him, which is 18 U.S.C. 1591, sex trafficking Jane. Now, Jane is a pseudonym for Diddy's girlfriend from the period of 2021 to 2024. And on direct testimony, she spent 2.5 days going through excruciating detail about her developing relationship with Diddy from its early heyday when everything was a romantic whirlwind until a few months later when she engages in the first hotel night. And hotel night is what Cassie Ventura, the first of his known trafficking victims, testified about and called a freak-off. So Jane refers to those as hotel nights, and those are extended sexual marathons where the woman is performing with another male entertainer, male performer, porn star, whomever, while Diddy watches and directs and often videotapes the events. And those hotel nights that Jane walked us through, which you've all heard about, the baby oil and the so many fluids we can't even go into it. The question that ultimately comes down for Jane is similar to the question that we had with Cassie, which is, are they acting of their own free will, or are they acting because they're being forced, coerced, compelled by Diddy? Now, when Jane is testifying, she routinely refers to Diddy as my partner or my lover. And a lot of people take away from that she's choosing to please her partner, her lover, and hence she cannot be coerced or compelled. Whereas other people are saying no, that he's holding the money, that he's inducing her with drugs, that he's at one point or another blackmailed her near the end of the relationship, but certainly not at the end, that he ended up actually beating her and choking her before having her engage in a hotel night a couple of hours later. And they look at that as clear signs of her being compelled. The other form of there being force or compulsion is in the form of fraud in the inducement. What do we mean by that? Well, she talked a lot about the fact that she would engage in a hotel night so that they would then afterwards go on a yacht or go on a cruise or go to this place or that place, and that never happened. And the state wants us to believe that he was intentionally trying to deceive her for the purpose of getting her to do it, and that he was basically acting fraudulently with her, and that should qualify as compulsive or a basis for the compulsory element in the charge of 18 U.S.C. 1591 sex trafficking. Now, we spent all day on cross-examination. Tenny Garagos for the defense is the one who was engaged in the cross, and I want you to just understand the dynamic here. When Tenny was doing the cross-examination of Cassie on day one, she conducted it like it was a People magazine interview. She ultimately got a little bit more aggressive. That is not the tone she took with Jane today. I wouldn't call it aggressive. I don't think that she was bullying the witness at any time today, but it was certainly more directed. And the nature of the questions that she was asking was designed to elicit a feel from the witness that she was completely okay with everything that was going on here. Now, for her part, the witness seemed very well composed, and there was pretty much a very boring day of cross-examination, far less entertaining than a lot of other days that we've had so far. And with one exception of a moment which everyone sat up in their chair and was like, whoa! And I'll get to that in a moment. But her demeanor has basically been very matter of fact. I'm talking about Jane's demeanor, that she seems to be in control and totally okay with answering questions and just saying that this is the way things went down. And the tone that she keeps and the messaging that she keeps giving as she's asked questions about the fact that she was involved in selecting some of the male entertainers, and we've heard a lot about these male entertainers, that it was all a matter of pleasing my partner, pleasing my lover, that she wasn't willfully going down this road, but that she was trying to please her partner, please her lover. She talked about that when she was questioned about the nature of her friendship or developing relationship on a friend level with some of these male performers, that she described Paul as having a warm energy, or described Don as being handsome. These are different performers who we heard a lot about during her 2.5 days of direct, and that she basically seemed to be comfortable with them, that she's texting Anton, who's a third one, and that she chose out Cabral, thought that he was attractive. And the idea that Tenny Garagos of the defense wants to take away is that she's comfortable with these guys. She enjoys the sex with them. That one of the sexual encounters she had, she called the most intense sexual experience of her life. Now, Jane responds to something like that he gave me a drug, which I had, a form of Molly that I had never had before, and it served to make her sexual appetite incredibly heightened, and that's why she ended up feeling that way. Not that she had any personal desire specifically for any of these entertainers, and that her whole agenda throughout this entire time was to please her partner. Now, the interesting thing is, as I said, a lot of people take away from this that she was just putting up an act, and they believe what Jane is putting out there, that the reason that she's engaging in lengthy sexual text exchanges, which we spent hours today going text exchange by text exchange of the most, you're so sexy, blah, 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 you turn me on, blah, 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 what do you think about having a hotel night here, he's so hot, blah, 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 just on and on. So she was trying to explain, and she seemed to be very calm in saying, I was giving my partner what he wanted. I was giving my lover the fantasy that he wanted, and trying to say that the justification for it was that she can tell that this is what he wanted. Now, there was a lot of people took away from this that makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense if you understand how this dynamic of this relationship is going. And that, yeah, she was, those are the parties who were saying she was trafficked. Others are saying you can't take no accountability for all these things he threw out there. There's got to be some sort of accountability. And it leads me to conclude that we're likely going to see a very conflicted jury, specifically over the third charge of the 5 charges brought against Diddy, the 18 U.S.C. 1591, sex trafficking as it relates to Jane. I think they're likely to be very conflicted with very strong opinions as to she was definitely trafficked or she was definitely not trafficked. But I really want to get into the terse exchange, which was the one exciting moment of testimony today. There was a point in time where one of the issues which would develop a fight between Jane and Diddy was about the fact that she felt she had been compartmented into this type of role of serving as his pleasure zone toy, and that she wanted to be a girlfriend, and that the only reason she was doing this whole type of performance was to spend quality time with him. And she would occasionally see things in gossip magazines or on Facebook or whatever, that she would get notifications about other girlfriends of his who were getting what she deemed to be quality time. And she defined quality time as she defined, getting the good boyfriend as getting quality time and dining and shopping and things of that nature. Well, Tenny Garagos, for the defense, tried turning that into saying that she wanted money from him, that she wanted the gifts. And she started going into a fight that unfolded shortly after Jane had seen a Facebook post from a girlfriend where she was all excited about a Chanel bag that she had gotten from Diddy. And then she goes through the text exchange that came out of that, where Jane gave a pretty insightful breakdown where Diddy had started off by saying how he missed her, and she's like, you don't miss me, you miss the performance I'm able to give you, but whatever, you do whatever you want, go off and lay around with whoever it is that you want. And that she was giving him attitude, expressing her frustration with the fact that, and the way she explained it was that she's the performer, and that's all she gets to get. She wants to be the girlfriend, and the other ones get the actual girlfriend type quality time from him. So Tenny said to her, so you didn't get a Chanel bag? And Jane responded, no, I got trauma. Everyone was like, whoa! And then she started asking her about different bags, trying to say that she got a different bag, I think it's called a bodega bag or something, and asking her how much a bodega bag costs, and she said a lot less than my body. So that was the one scuffle between Jane and Tenny Garagos during the entire cross-examination today. A few moments after that Jane asked to have a break and things settled back down. But it was like I said, it was excruciatingly long. And much of the time, I personally, when I was watching this, I was like, I don't know what we're getting out of this. I don't know what to take away from all of this. They're reading through one blah 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 text exchange after another. What am I supposed to get? What am I supposed to get from this? So she's talking about freak-offs, or not freak-offs, but hotel nights, or about this guy, and basically having one very explicit text exchange after another where they're both talking about engaging in hotel nights, and she's going to say that her motivation was that she was trying to give her lover what he wants. It felt very tedious to me, and I actually felt as if the defense had wasted most of the day. But then I get in an elevator. After we wrap up for the day, I get in an elevator with a whole bunch of folks who are all sitting watching this testimony all day today. And it's a crowded elevator with like 15 of us. And as soon as the doors close, one guy goes, that woman is not a victim of being trafficked. And 5-6 people around me are all like, yeah, no way at all. She's how do you call that trafficking? And they all seem to be on the same page that she's not trafficked. And yet I talk to other people here who seem to get angry at me if I imply to them that there's an argument to be made that she was not trafficked. And that's why I foresee that this third charge is likely to be something that the
Somebody said Diddy dropped a song called Private Entertainer in 2021. Really?
jury will similarly be hotly divided over as to whether or not she's a victim. That's what I got for you today. We wrapped up at 3 o'clock today. Tomorrow we start at 1 p.m. It's a late start tomorrow. I'll be back here to cover that for you. This is Joe Neerman, aka Good Logic. If you like this type of content, please like, share, subscribe, and hit that.
We live. You want that dick? Can you get that dick? And
now, switch up the outfit. Holy.
You testified on the stand that it wasn't your fault, that because of Puffy encouraged you, you reached out to Cabral and y'all got together. And after the first time you and Cabral got together with Puff, there was no money exchanged. Puffy suggested they get a girl to come. It'd be Puffy, Jane Doe, and another honey. Jane Doe testified that I was happy and surprised because Puffy never had a girl do that. Now, supposedly, Cabral took one of these tapes of the hotel night and sold it to a media company.
This must have been a wrap-up for the whole day. Hold on, let's get to the end of the day.
The next time I see you, I'm going to do something different. Puffy texts her back. We don't have to do Molly. Jane Doe, we can get slutty the following day. Puffy, we don't have to go crazy the rest of the year. Let's switch it up. I believe it when I see it. Jane Doe, I love your intensity. I love our level of eroticism. It's on another level. Puffy said, nope, I'm gonna make you beg for debauchery. Jane Doe, you definitely intoxicate me. Every stroke you give me. Do you remember the time? Do you remember the time when we fell in love? Do you? Michael Jackson. I love Michael Jackson. I love Michael Jackson. And I don't believe nothing what they said about Michael Jackson. I love Michael Jackson. When he was with the Jackson 5 and had the big afro back in 1975. Wasn't nobody bigger than the Jackson 5. Nobody was bigger. Puffy wasn't bigger than the Jackson 5. Jay-Z, nobody bigger than the Jackson 5. Nobody was bigger than Michael Jackson.
I'm feeling it today.
Michael Jackson better than Doe. Do you remember the time when we fell in love? All right, Jane Doe. Prince couldn't mess. Prince money though. Prince mean. I'm live on my YouTube. You want to say hi to my? Do you remember the time we had that? Do you remember the time we had that was intense? I can't believe we came at the same time. I wish you were here so we can watch our videos on TV.
That's Jane saying that?
And lock ourselves in the room all day. Puffy texts her back. Tomorrow night we gonna do it. Jane Doe texts him back, okay, and puts the water emoji. Water, 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 water. You know how you be with a honey? You be texting with a honey, and y'all be talking sex, and then you put like, maybe like the eggplant, and then you put the water, water, water. All Jane Doe's emojis to Puffy be the water, water, water. Water, water, water. On Christmas, Jane Doe bought, yeah, there it go right there. There it go right there. Everybody put the water. She's sitting at the pump. Put the water in there. Where that water at? There it go.
Hey, chat, what that mean? If you texting a girl and she like can't wait to see you, and she put the little, y'all know the emoji, right? This right here. She hit you with this. This is the message right here. She said, I can't wait to see you, and she put this right after her. What that mean, chat? What that mean? Y'all gotta break it down. Break it down. What that mean?
There it go. Every time she texts Puff, that be her emoji. Water, water, water. But listen. But sometimes me too. Yo, if I be texting with a honey, I be like this. I be texting with a honey. And she take me there. I put water, water, water too. Yes, I do.
Nah, Uncle Freak too. We knew Uncle was having his own freak offs. He looked like he knew the dynamics.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And you know what she do back to me? You know what the honey do back to me? She send me the water, water back too. She know what it is. She know what the fuck it is. She know what it is. She better send it back. She better send it back. Or she won't see me. Alright, so on Christmas, Jane Doe bought Puffy's 3 daughters some teddy bears for Christmas. And Puffy texted her, that was so sweet. Jane Doe texts Puffy back saying, the way you made me come, I've never came that hard before in my life. Your dick was hard, deep, and wet. You light my fire, you blow my mind. That's Jane Doe. That's Jane Doe.
Damn.
What y'all want from me?
That's how
What y'all
she.
want from me? What y'all want from me? That was it. That was the end. So we ended early today. Tomorrow, court don't start until 1 o'clock. So I will not be doing, I may come, you know what? She's not gonna do that. She's not South now. Them country girls, they love niggas from up north. But let me say this too. I gotta keep it real. I gotta keep it real. Foundational Black American men from up north, we love them country girls, man. Words, they used to like it. Yeah, they did.
Nah, I'm just saucy right now.
Love dudes from Jersey and New York. Love us. Soon as I go down there, it don't be no problem for me. It ain't never been no problem for me. But anyway, Jane Doe wanted to fight. Jane Doe wanted to fight Tenny Cabrego. She lost her cool. You understand? Young Miami. You understand? She don't like to hear Young Miami name. She have a fit.
Oh.
Jane Doe have a fit when she hear Young Miami.
Word?
Man, them down south girls know how to cook. They know how to cook. They wash clothes. Man, don't let the kitty cat be good. If the kitty cat be good, nigga be open. Open like a window. Open like a token. Open like a token. Hey, DC Pro, all I gotta do when I go down south, all I gotta do is start talking. They hear my accent, they be like, they start giggling and shit, looking at me. I be like, yeah, you know what it is. You see it. You see it. You see it. And I look good too. And I'm fly too. They be like, yeah, that's one of them. He from New York. He from New York. Be like, nah, never that. Never New York. From Jersey over there. Jersey over there. On the other side of the water. You got the Hudson River. On this side, you got New York. Tallahassee, what up? I'm live on my YouTube.
Illegally. People want to come here and live the American dream. It says it on the Statue of Liberty. Bring us your time.
Okay. They talking about some ice shit. All right, bet. Let's get into today's chat. Here I am. Big Act in the building. Let's go. This is the afternoon session. There's only afternoon session today. So let's get into it. So the judge says, should we talk about anything before the jury comes in? And does the defense want to respond to the government on the juror issue? Alexander Shapiro says there's a thinly veiled attempt to exclude a black jury or juror. So the AUSA wants a juror off of the panel. Apparently, they think that this person is maybe subvertly, maybe like has a connection with Diddy. And they're watching Diddy's body language. They're watching the jurors. If they're looking at Diddy a lot, they're watching if they're sending like little signals. And they feel like there's an issue. I'm not saying it's that, but there's an issue with one of the jurors. They want to exclude them. Alexander Shapiro says, yeah, this is a problem. Well, we can't exclude this juror. This juror was picked to be of the original 12. Also, it's a black juror. Why are we going to get him out? AUSA says we look at the record and we found lack of candor. Now, lack of candor means someone who's untruthful, someone who has not told or become forthcoming about either their past, about their proclivities and such nature. The judge says, we'll deal with it before the weekend. Are the jurors ready? They say no. The judge says, let's take 10 minutes. They take a little break. And now they're waiting for the jurors. Combs is reading something and talking to Ignifilo on one side. Shapiro is one seat away about the juror the U.S. wants to remove, probably. They said they're waiting for the jury. Okay. So all rise. The judge says, Garagos, you can proceed. Tenney says, I want to admit this exhibit under seal. Can you read that, Jane? It's messages from December 2021 between yourself and Cabral. That's a sex worker if you don't know. After a hotel night. Jane says, yes, I could see it. What about that night? You had a pretty intense night, right? Daphne says, yes. Tenney says, he says to you, you were talking so dirty to me. I love it. Jane says, I'm just being friendly here. Garagos says, after your long hotel night, you saw him with Gina? She saw Diddy with Gina. So keep in mind, chat. This is why I keep telling you, I don't think Gina gonna take the stand. Gina is what we call a bottom bitch. Bottom bitch. Like, she's a chick. He fucks while he's with other girls. She never gets claimed, but she never goes nowhere. Loyal one. Real loyal one. Real talk. Cassie was complaining about Gina. The new girl is complaining about Gina 2 or 3 years later, and Gina was never the main. Gina never became the main. Gina never got main status. And let's say his main was Cassie. Cassie complained about Gina. Cassie breaks up with him in 2018. He's still fucking Gina. Still getting his shit off with Gina. Gina did try to expose him, though. But he got her back under the wing. 3 years goes by, he starts fucking with 50's baby mom. Gina's still on the roster. So she like a real bottom bitch. I ain't gonna hold you. Okay. So now it says, then Cabral wrote to you that he'd be in LA and he'll stay to see you if you wanted. Jane says yes. Garagos says, what did you say? Jane says, I said it's my birthday weekend, and you don't show me no love. Garrigo says, did you ask him to send you a personal video? Jane says, yes. Garrigo says, wait, so that night you saw the Italian entertainer, who we'll just call the entertainer, right? She says, yes. And Sean had taken up with Young Miami. She says, yes. So it appears that Daphne goes to fuck a entertainer without Puff, but she goes to fuck the guy because Diddy's with Young Miami now. Diddy just came off being with Gina. Remember, Diddy got a roster. He can't clone himself. There's only so much dick one man could give. Or actually ain't giving dick at all. He, so much Astroglide he could put on. So now he was with Young Miami. So yes. Garrigo says, and you said if you don't get your ass out of the island, no party, right? Right. Sean wrote you a note. Said you meant the world to him. You told KK you wanted to make it cute and romantic, right? She said, yeah. Garrigo says the Valentine's Day hotel night, having two men there. Was that your idea? She said, yeah, it was. After these nights, it was crushing to see these things. Garrigo says these things like Gina posting a love bracelet on Instagram, right? She says yes. Let's look that up. She posted a bracelet. She blocked me, so I got to see if we can find it. But supposedly she had a love bracelet. Can't really find it. Fuck it. All right. Garrigo says, here you are planning to reach out to Sean and perhaps reach out to the Italian. Jane says, yeah, I was still doing that then. So she's planning all these hotel nights. So you could tell Diddy is starting to realize, like, let's use some common sense. Diddy's starting to realize she getting too jealous. She too clingy. She think that dick is all hers. She thinks he belongs to her. Diddy done told her he's polyamorous. He got other girls. He pays her bills, but he wants to do his thing. She's constantly dick watching. Oh, you was with Gina? You was with Young Miami? She's starting to feel like that. You could tell, and use our brains here, people. Diddy starts to pull back a little bit. So how she gets Diddy back in, it's the same thing with Cassie. Didn't I say that also with Cassie, chat? I said, at first, it was Diddy pushing the let's do a freak off. Let's do a freak off. Let's do a freak off. After 2012, it was Cassie that was suggesting these things, hitting up the men without even Diddy telling her. Why? She knew that's the only way she could get some time with him. Diddy wasn't volunteering his what they would call alone time to these women anymore. So Jane is doing this, saying she's setting up a hotel night with Sean and the Italian. Garrigo says, can you FaceTime? Jane said, that's what he said. Garrigo says, 10 days later, you had another hotel night, right? She said, maybe. Garrigo says, I'll just refresh your recollection of seeing Mr. Combs and having a hotel night with him. Okay, she looks at whatever. They're not going to show in the gallery. She says, okay, yeah, I did. So you pretty much had no hotel nights until the end of June, right? She said, maybe. Okay. Here, Mr. Combs says, I'm jerking my dick thinking of how nasty you're going to be to me, right? She says, yes. Garrigo says, he says call Italian or Paul is free. And you like Paul, right? Paul is free, right? She says, yes. Garrigo says, sounds like he gave you a choice and you chose. She said, yes. Garrigo says, he responds, I told Paul 11 p.m. Is that okay? And let's watch porn first. She says, yes. Garrigo says, he says London Hotel. What would you get? Jane says stripper, shoes, shorts, maybe whips. Garrigo says, shorts? Well, why the hell would you get shorts? Jane says, I was really turned off by their shorts, so I got other shorts for them. It was not fun to wait for them to be erect, so I started to get things on the side that they could get hard. I got pills at the stores. I got them the Rhino. Come on, chat. One in the chat if you ever fuck with a Rhino. I never did, but have y'all. One in the chat if you've ever fucked with the Rhino. I'm not buying nothing from a gas station. Now I ain't gonna hold you. I'm not buying no pills, no medicine from no goddamn gas station. But one in the chat if you ever fuck with a Rhino pill. Ant-Man just put 2. Ant-Man, you know damn well you were fucking with a Rhino. Was the honey packs not out there? Gargo says the next day, he says, want to go to dinner at 9, bring the freak bag. What y'all know about the freak bag, chat? What y'all know about the freak bag? Bring the freak bag just in case. Jane says, right. The lingerie and the rest. Gargo says, but didn't you have a freak night that night? Let me refresh your recollection. And this is an exhibit on their seal. Look like it's a picture of a video. Gargo says, he says, I'm about to work out with Paul. Then I want to see you. You say hair up? Jane says that was probably a FaceTime between these two. Gargo says, he says, did you want to hit Italian? Right? Did you want to hit Italian, right? Jane says, yes, I did not want to. Huh? Gargo says, Sean says, Paul is all we need. You say LOL. Why'd you say that? Or what'd you say after? I say I'll go to the store unless you get a head start. What did you mean by that? Jane says I will go unless you got to the hotel ahead of me. Gargo says, but then you spent several days at his home, didn't you? She said maybe. Gargo says, you really did love him though, right? She says, I did. Do you remember seeing Sean in September 22 and not having a hotel night? Maybe it was a 9th. Jane says, I'm not too sure. Now, do you see that you saw him but there was no hotel night? Jane says, that is incorrect. Okay, what about September 4th? Jane says, we took a jet to Vegas. He performed. Then we had a hotel night with an entertainer. Gargo says, do you remember seeing him on the 20th and not having a hotel night? She said, I'm not sure. Let me show you this. Does it refresh your recollection? She says, I guess it did. I guess I did. Did Sean pay for your birthday dinner? Yes. What was the restaurant? I can't remember the name. Did you have a good time? I had an okay time. You wrote, is Nobu the only place? How about something outside of the hotel? Jane says he conveniently put me in the hotel with Nobu. I suggested Poppy Steak. One in the chat if you ever heard one of these little thoughts talk about Poppy Steak. Poppy Steak. Come on now, chat. Poppy Steak. She wanted Poppy Steak. Diddy said Nobu. Gargo said that was a nice hotel or a nice restaurant in Miami. Or so I've heard. No. Well, Gargo said, is that a nice restaurant in Miami? She said, so I've heard. Gargo says, Valentine's Day, the year before, he was in a different country. You wrote, get your ass back from that island, right? Jane says, yes. Gargo says, then at Nobu, you accepted it. Let me make sure I understand what I'm reading. Valentine's Day, the year before, he was in a different country. You wrote, get your ass back from that island, right? Yes. Then at Nobu, you accepted it. Accepted what? Jane says, I would say I went along with it. Gargo says, you said accepted. Jane says, my stuttering was trying to find the right word for the pressure I felt. Gargo says, did you mean agitation? She said yes. You said he gave you your birthday gift. It was a necklace. She says yes. Garrigo says, did you take this photo? Jane says yes. Garrigo says, we'll put this under seal. It was a Van Cleef necklace, right? She said yes. Garrigo says, could you explain what Van Cleef is? Says it's a jewelry brand that's high-end. In the photo, I had already taken drugs. Any time of affection made me smile. So Garrigo says, you took a mirror selfie. Jane says, unfortunately, yes. Garrigo says, did Sean give the entertainer a condom that night? She says, yes. Are these your texts with Cabral? Jane says, I was high. It was 2:40 in the morning. UCT time, right? Yes. So it was night, East Coast time. Yes. You invited Cabral for the next day. But wouldn't the ecstasy have worn off by then? Jane says, in these nights, I repeatedly took ecstasy. Garrigo says, you say you will book his travel for the next day, right? Jane says, yes. Garrigo says, what did you write her? Jane says, I wrote, I appreciate everything you did for my birthday. I wanted to give you everything you wanted Valentine's Day. They said, what did you mean? Jane says, the necklace and your lovemaking only in regard to him. So basically saying she appreciated that Diddy got her the Van Cleef necklace and that he made love to her. Garrigo says, then you send him photos of your guys in the hotel room. She says, yes. You didn't tell him you didn't like it until you saw him with Carisha and Turks, right? Jane says, yes. It was hurtful after enduring what I endured. So that's important. She's basically saying she never told Diddy that she didn't enjoy these freak-offs until she saw Diddy with Carisha. Wow. Wow. That kind of goes into you're more jealous than you're doing something against your will. Garrigo says, you reached out to Cabral? She says, yes, under the pressure of my lover. Garrigo says, you asked him and he gave the man a condom. Jane says, yeah, the last minute, thank God. Garrigo says, you wrote to him, I loved and appreciate every detail you put into my birthday. So she told Diddy after the freak-off, I loved and appreciate every detail you put into my birthday. Jane says, I wrote that in regard to Sean. Garrigo says, you wrote that to Sean, but you stopped talking to him right after. What happened? She said, I was heartbroken. I flew to Paris Fashion Week. Garrigo says, did you enjoy it? Jane says, yes. Garrigo says this is a text message chain between you, Sean, in March of 2023. On the second day, he wrote, I'm sorry I called you a bitch. I deserve this. Love. Right? She says yes. Garrigo then says, he then writes, when can you come to Turks? Right? She says yes. Garrigo says you sent him a heart emoji and wrote, what we have is special, right? Jane says yes. Garrigo says the budget for your trip was $100,000. She says yes. Damn, Diddy was vacationing. $100,000 they spent. Jane says yes. Garrigo says, and he spent $55,000, right? Jane says, I don't know. Garrigo says, you felt like he didn't like you up and leaving to Paris. Jane says, no, he didn't like that. Garrigo says, you went to the Mondrian Oriental and watched pornography with Sean, right? She says, yes. Then Sean asked you about bringing Dawn, right? Jane says, given the situation, I said yes. Garrigo says, you said if you known Paul would be there, you wouldn't have gone to Turks. Jane says, I wouldn't have. Garrigo says, well, did you write Cabral from there and invite him to come there? Jane says, yes, under encouragement from my partner. Yes, I did. So you see what happened there. She said, if I knew I was going to Turks and there was going to be a prostitute, I wouldn't have went. But they have her on messages where she says she invites another prostitute while she's there. And she's like, I'll book your flight. So they're saying if you didn't like this and you say you wouldn't have went to Turks if there was going to be a male entertainer, why would you invite another male entertainer? Well, you're there. Garrigo says, were you happy when Sean gave you diamonds? Jane says, I thought that was so sweet. Garrigo says, were you glad to get diamonds? Jane says, nah, I just wanted Sean. Garrigo says, you wrote, I wanted diamonds. Right? Comey says, objection as to form. It's a rephrase. Garrigo says, do you remember telling Sean that you would let Sean go too far, that you'd let him go too far, and it was your fault? She said yes. Garrigo says, Your Honor, I think this would be a good place to take a break. Judge says, okay, all rise. They take a break. They're back. Judge says, are we all ready? Except for the absence of Mrs. Comey. AUSA says, Your Honor, we've reached you. Comey enters. The judge says, bring Jane Doe back. The jury enters and Jane Doe. Ms. Garrigos, you may proceed. Garrigo says, you wrote, all I have in mind right now is your passionate lovemaking, right? She says, yes. Garrigo says, you saw him 2 weeks later and never had a hotel night, right? She said, maybe. Garrigo says, let's play this voice note. I believe there's no objection. Comey says, I don't have it on my list, but if Ms. Garrigos represents I have no objections, I won't. Garrigo says, give me a minute, I'll move on. Did you ask about hotels or Airbnbs? She says yes. Garrigo says, and Sean asks, how do you know there ain't no cameras in the Airbnb, right? Jane says, yes, I wrote they could be covered by security. We'll just say it's our anniversary and we want to cover them to feel comfortable. Garrigo says, what did you write to Sean? Jane says, you make my child happy. I love you. She starts crying. She tells Diddy, you make my child.
At the barbershop and I'm just.
What the fuck? She tells Diddy, you make me and 50 Cent's son feel so happy. I love you. But she's crying on the stand. Garrigo says, it's okay. Take all the time you need. Jane says, I do remember. So are you ready? You ready to go? She says, yes. So in this, where are you? So in this picture, it's a hotel night. They introduced something, but it's sealed. 3136 is sealed. She's starting to cry, y'all. She's starting to cry. We're caught up for today. Here we go. By the way, let's get a little bit more on why they want to kick the black juror out.
Everybody, I'm Jesse Weber, and hearing sex trafficking is questioned by the defense. And it's interesting where they're going. We're going to talk more about it. I do want to give you a heads up, though. Usually during this lunchtime show, we have Elizabeth Milner, who comes on to give us started late in the Diddy courtroom today. They started, you can check it out. But right now, she's continuing to be cross-examined and associates and sex acts, these hotel that all of this is desensitizing sex for her, and you could argue, is it because she felt that she's doing all these things and yet he's seeing people on the side, she's not being treated as fairly, or does she feel that she's being pressured into this against her will? The reason I say this is she's being cross-examined by Tenny Garrigos, and I'm going to read a little bit of the transcript right now, a little bit of the court updates. And by the way, for the next hour and a half, we're going to be reporting in real time what's happening with the testimony, and we break it down. Ms. Garrigos asks her, and you said if you don't get your A out of the island, no party, right? Right. Sean wrote you a note that you said meant the world to you. You told KK, meaning Christina Coram, his former chief of staff, you told KK you wanted to make it cute and romantic. Yes. The Valentine's Day hotel night, having two men there, was that your idea? It was.
Let's go to the thing about the jury.
stopping you. I think as far as your question's concerned is about Jesse, because that's the point the defense is making with all these cross-examinations.
Seems that the government doesn't want this juror dismissed, removed from the case, but found there, quote, appeared to be a lack of candor with the court. And the defense seemingly has accused the government, again, this happened at the beginning of the day, of trying to excuse this juror because they're a black juror, or they are, and I mean, that's quite the allegation, basically saying the prosecution's trying to exclude a juror who, I can't tell if the motivation, they're saying the motivation was because of race, or, hey, listen, the end result would be if you get rid of a juror who is a black juror, that's a big factor in this case. I have no idea what's going on here. Do you have any idea what the issue could be?
Not necessarily, unless maybe they're not paying attention. Maybe they feel like that she's not making, maybe the juror, I'm saying the juror's making faces. It's hard to determine what's happening without really knowing the issues, but clearly the government has found something about her, and they obviously don't like her as a juror for some reason and want to get rid of her. Obviously, the defense likes this juror, and it's very hard for a judge to remove a juror in the middle of a trial, even though there's alternates. They have to make a pretty good showing. That could be reversible error if not careful.
Yeah, it's interesting, and the judge said that they'll figure it out before the end of the weekend what to do, so we'll probably get some update on that. Okay, hey, Serena, I got a question for you. And what a compliment you get here. This is from M. Pathry. Hey, Serena, my favorite attorney after Jesse, of course. Sorry, Lawrence, but this is what can you get? Hey, Serena,
I'll take second place.
my favorite attorney after Jesse, of course. You're super smart, discerning, a great communicator, and well-versed with the law. Enjoy your inputs very much. I thought there was even a question. It's a full compliment.
You can read that all day, Jesse. That's fine.
I may have to. By the way,
thank you so much.
I'm not on often enough for people to really remember me.
Well, listen, let's see. Maybe at the end of this whole show, Lawrence, you'll get a kind comment. We'll see. But Serena, I'll throw another one to you because we have a lot of questions coming in right now. Okay. This is from Bella Reyes. This is to you, Serena. Is Tenny Garagos measuring up to the task? I guess it means measuring up to the task of cross-examining Jane.
I think she is. I will give her flowers, her props. It is very difficult to cross-examine, an alleged victim of sexual assault. It is very, very difficult, especially in a case that's being watched by thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people across the country. That adds pressure. I think that she's handling herself beautifully. I think that she is approaching this in the exact right way. She's not being too aggressive and offensive, but she's just aggressive enough to kind of tell the jury that she's not buying the story and that neither should they. You do have to walk a very fine line in these cases in particular when you cross-examine somebody like that. And so she's trying to base this all on facts and evidence and not really insult this woman while at the same time trying to discredit her. It's not an easy task, so I will give her props.
Lawrence, going back to you, this is a question about the jury. This is from Legal Code. If I had a sister on the jury, would she be in trouble for talking to me about what's going on?
Absolutely.
So how would the court find out? And could she even say, hey, listen, I'm not going to tell you what's going on, but there's a big case happening. It's in the news a lot. It's about a big celebrity, a big rap star, federal case. I'm going to be out. Can she even say that she's on the jury?
I mean, I haven't seen any court orders, but I don't see why she can't say she's on the jury. I mean, it's obviously public knowledge. People walk to the courtroom or see jurors walking to the courthouse. I think that's absolutely fine. But can't talk about anything that they've seen in court. Can't talk about the case. That is absolutely a violation of their oath. They could be removed, held in contempt. That would be bad.
How would they find out about that?
I mean, gosh, so many different ways I've seen. I mean, maybe somebody hears about it, comes forward. Maybe the juror says, I was talking to my sister yesterday about the case. Another juror tells. I mean, I've had cases where one time in a case where a juror came up and told the judge that they were informed by the clerk of the jury that about something that happened in court and that was a violation. So, I mean, there's all different ways. I was once walking in a court, and this was years ago when Facebook first came out, and saw somebody post on Facebook, back when you could check in somewhere, you see other people checking in and posting. And someone posted saying, I'm a juror in federal court today, can't wait to hang them high. So I saw that, and I went immediately to the chief judge, and I told the chief judge about it. So, I mean, that's a problem. People are silly. I mean,
Yeah.
people do stuff all the time that we find out, posting on social media.
Well, by the way, Lawrence, do you think there's a possibility these jurors are going to come out and speak after the trial?
100%.
Of course. It's their time to make money and shine, right? I mean, I'm sure they will.
Oh my goodness, you are so, what's the word I'm looking for? You're so,
Realist?
no, what was the word? I was going to make a joke out of it. You're so, I forgot the word. I'll come up with it. My joke will hit, but not land.
I mean,
when
I'm
I
not
come
saying
back.
you should.
What was the word? What was the word I had? I don't remember. But yeah, you think that they are.
Not everyone, but, they may not want to be bothered.
You're so jaded. You're so jaded. That's what you are. You're so jaded.
I'm jaded. I've just seen these high-profile cases. They come out, someone writes a book. Look what happened in the Murdoch case, where you had the clerk writing a book while it was going on.
Well, that is
it's
true.
terrible. I mean, these are serious issues. These are people on trial for their lives, and they have people who are accusing somebody they may have been seriously sexually abused. It shouldn't happen. But I'm just saying what I've seen historically. I don't doubt it.
No, look, I don't disagree with you. I was just making light.
People still making money in the OJ case.
Okay, here we go. So, should have some more tweets. We're caught up here. Okay, and this is 3-1. So these are sealed exhibits. 3152, is it a message after the hotel night saying, I love living in the moment with you? It was our little party, rosé, whatever we were saying. Is that a moon emoji? Comey says, Your Honor, may we approach sidebar. They're having a sidebar. The sidebar is over. Garagos then says, Jane, jumping ahead, DX3172. Is this a message chain between you and Combs? August 9th, 2023. Jane says yes. Garagos says, Mr. Combs writes, movie night is off the charts. You say you agree, right? She said she agrees. Garagos says, then All-Star Night. Oh, my God, the All-Star Freak-Off. Chat, Jane Doe has suggested a All-Star Freak-Off, one for the ages. She was going to get and sequester the top 3 porn stars, male, and she was going to fuck them all in the same night. She called it a All-Star Freak-Off, okay? Now, apparently it was canceled by the hurricane. They said yes. They said you heard Mr. Combs was on a podcast in Croatia where he said he had sex on a yacht trip. So you said he lied to you, right? Jane says it hurt my feelings. When did, let me see. Diddy podcast Croatia. I think that's this.
Every day is.
I think it's this, huh?
We on set of my new podcast called Carisha.
So Diddy got a new lawyer, Bradford Cohen, the one who represented Young Thug. And I really want to know, how much is Diddy paying for his legal defense team? Like, it has to be at least like 5 to 10 mil that he's paying for this legal defense team, which I understand it. Your life is on the line, basically. Man, I genuinely feel bad for Diddy, kind of, because, like, let's keep it a bean. Like, okay, if there's underage kids involved, I don't feel bad. Anyone underage, I don't feel bad. If there's anyone being drugged and stuff happening against their will, I don't feel bad. But I'm not gonna lie, like, I don't know if you guys ever heard about the allegations of the women who get flown out to like places like Dubai and pissed and shit on for like $50K. If women are going by will to these places knowing what's gonna happen and it happens to them, should we necessarily feel bad for them? Like, that's part of like where my head's at on these kind of situations. Like the Cassie thing, I understand that she was getting abused, but everybody else, bro, come on. Like, I don't know. But yeah, let me know how you guys feel about everything. It's your boy Big Act News. Either it's free Diddy or keep Diddy. It doesn't really matter to me. Let me know how you guys feel about everything in the comments below, and I'm out.